She left town 10 years ago without looking back. He was still standing where she left him. She came back to Vesper, Colorado territory, on a Tuesday in November, and the coming back was the thing she had sworn she would never do, the swearing a promise made to herself at 19 when she left, the leaving a departure so complete that she had not written a letter or sent a word, or allowed herself to think about the town she had abandoned, the town being the place where she had been Tilly Voss, the daughter of a drunk, the girl who wore patched dresses, and who went to school with mud on her boots, and who was pitied by some, and mocked by others, and loved by one, and the one was Grady Farron. And Grady Farron was the reason she had not come back, because coming back meant seeing Grady, and seeing Grady meant confronting what she had done, and what she had done was leave him without explanation, without goodbye, without the courtesy that a person owes to the person who loves them, and the without was the shame, and the shame was the wall, and the wall had held for 10 years. She was 29 now. She had been in Denver for a decade, working as a seamstress. The seamstressing, a skill learned from necessity and refined by determination. The determination, the engine that had carried Tilly from the mud-booted girl in Vesper to the woman with a small shop on Larimer Street, who made dresses for women who had never known mud on their boots. And the making was the living, and the living was respectable, and respectable was the thing Tilly had wanted when she left. The wanting so fierce that she had sacrificed everything to get it, and everything included Grady. She had friends in Denver. She had customers who trusted her eye for fabric and her hand with a needle. She had a room of her own with a window that faced the mountains. The mountains, the distance the freedom that she had purchased with the leaving. And the freedom was real. The freedom was the achievement, and the achievement was the loneliness. Because freedom purchased by leaving is freedom that carries the weight of what was left, and the weight was Grady, and Grady was the stone in her pocket that she carried through every fitting and every hem and every dress that she made for women who had not run from the men who loved them. She came back because her father was dead. She came back because the telegram had found her, the telegram that said Emmett Voss deceased, property in Vesper, and the property was the house she had grown up in, the house that smelled of whiskey and regret, and the house needed to be sold or settled, and the selling or settling required her presence, and her presence required the return, and the return required the courage she had spent 10 years avoiding. Vesper was smaller than she remembered. Vesper was always small, but the smallness had been the entirety of her world at 19, and now the world was larger, and the larger made the small seem smaller, and the smaller was the sadness of a town that had not grown, that had stayed the way she left it, the stasis that small frontier towns achieve when there is no railroad, and no mine, and no reason for anyone to come except to leave. Grady was still there. Grady was still there, because Grady was the kind of man who stays, the quality that Tilly had not understood at 19, and that she was beginning to understand at 29, the understanding, the maturity that 10 years produces. The maturity that says, staying is not weakness, staying is not failure, staying is the commitment to a place and a life, and the commitment is the strength, and the strength was Grady. He ran the livery and the smithy. He ran both, because Vesper was too small for two separate businesses, and because Grady was the kind of man who does two jobs rather than half of one. The two jobs, the work ethic that was his inheritance from his own father. A good man, a sober man, a man who had been the opposite of Emmett Voss in every way, and the opposite was the model, and the model was the man Grady had become, steady, reliable, present. The presentness, the quality that makes a man the center of a small town, the center, the person everyone brings their broken things to, and the broken things were horses and wagons and gates and sometimes people, and the sometimes people were the ones who needed a hand with a harvest, or a ride to the doctor, or a fence rebuilt after a storm, and Grady was the hand, and the ride, and the rebuilding was his nature. She saw him on the first day. She saw him at the general store, buying flour and coffee, buying the ordinary task of an ordinary day, and the ordinary was the shock, because the shock of return is not the dramatic, but the mundane, The evidence that life continued without you, that the person you left continued buying flour and coffee and living the life that you were not part of, and the not being part was the absence, and the absence was hers, and hers was the choice, and the choice was the thing she had to face. He had aged. He had aged the way frontier men age, the skin browner, the lines deeper around the eyes, the hands rougher. But the aging was the same face, the same Grady, the same gray eyes that had looked at her at 19, with the love that she had not been ready to receive. The not ready, the youth, the excuse she had given herself for 10 years, and the excuse was wearing thin. He saw her, and he stopped. The stopping, the recognition, the moment when the past enters the present, and the present must accommodate it, and the accommodating was the pause, the breath, the second before the words. Tilly, he said. Grady. The names were the bridge. The names were the only bridge available. No other words were sufficient. No other words could span 10 years, and so the names carried the weight, and the weight was everything. I heard about your father, Grady said. I am sorry. You do not need to be sorry. My father was not a man who earned sorrow from others. I am sorry for you. I am sorry that you had to come back for this reason. This was the only reason that could bring me back. Grady looked at her. The looking was the assessment that a man performs when seeing a person he once loved and is determining whether the once loved is still loved, and the determining was instantaneous, and the instantaneous was the answer, and the answer was yes, the yes, as unchanged as the gray eyes and the flower buying and the staying that was Grady's nature, and the nature was the love, and the love had stayed too. Tilly went to her father's house. She went and she opened the door, and she stood in the smell of whiskey and dust, and the particular decay that an unloved house achieves when its occupant stops caring, and the stopped caring was Emmett Voss's last years, the decline that whiskey produces, the decline, the falling that ends in the floor, and the floor was where they found him, and the finding was the end, and the end was the reason Tilly was standing in this house. She cleaned. She cleaned because cleaning was the doing, and doing was the alternative to feeling, and feeling was the thing she was not ready for the grief that was not grief for her father, but grief for herself. Grief for the 19-year-old who had run from this house, and this town, and this life, and who had left behind the only person who had made the house, and the town, and the life bearable, and the bearable was Grady, and Grady was down the street, buying flour, living the life she had not shared. Grady came to the house on the second day. He came with a hammer and nails and boards, the bringing the offering, the help that a man provides when a woman needs help, and when the man is the kind of man who provides it without being asked, and the without being asked was Grady's way being the doing before the asking, the doing, the care, the love that had survived the leaving. The porch rail is broken, Grady said. The back step is rotted. The shutters need rehanging. If you are going to sell the house, you will need these things fixed, and I can fix them. You do not owe me help, Grady. After what I did, the leaving, the silence, you do not owe me anything. The owing is not the point. The point is that the porch rail is broken and I have a hammer. The point is that I have spent 10 years being the man who fixes things in this town, and this house is in this town, and fixing is what I do. He fixed the porch rail. He fixed the back step. He rehung the shutters. He fixed things for 3 days while Tilly cleaned inside, and Grady hammered outside. The inside and the outside, the parallel, the working together, that was not together but that was near, and near was the proximity that allowed the silence to soften, the softening, the thawing, the beginning of the conversation that 10 years of silence had dammed up, the dam breaking slowly, one board at a time. On the 4th day, Tilly found something. She found it in her father's desk, a box, and the box contained letters, and the letters were from Grady, and the letters were addressed to Tilly, and the letters had never been sent because the letters had never been finished, because the letters were drafts. The drafts, the attempts of a man who tried to write to the woman who left him and who could not find the words. the not finding the evidence of the pain. And the pain was in every unfinished sentence, every crossed-out line, every letter that began "Dear Tilly" and ended in nothing. She read them. She read them sitting on the floor of her father's house, and she understood. Understood that the leaving had not been a clean cut, that the leaving had been a wound, and the wound had not healed, and the not healing was in the letters, in the drafts that Grady had written and not sent, the not sending, the restraint, the respect for her choice, even when her choice was the thing that broke him. The letters numbered 14. 14 attempts across 1 year. 14 beginnings without endings. The first letter was dated 2 weeks after she left, and the words were careful. The words of a man trying to be fair to the woman who had hurt him, trying to understand the leaving before judging it. And the trying was the generosity, and the generosity was Grady. Because Grady's first response to being hurt was not anger, but the attempt to understand, and the attempt was in every line. The last letter was dated 11 months later. It said only, "Dear Tilly, I hope you are well. I am still here." And then it stopped. The stopping was the acceptance of the silence that Tilly had imposed and that Grady had finally agreed to. And the agreeing was the letting go that is not the same as the stopping of love, because love can continue in silence, and silence was where Grady's love had lived for 10 years. She took the letters to Grady. She took them because the letters were his, and because the taking was the confronting the thing she owed him, not the letters but the acknowledgement of the hurt that she had caused by leaving without words. "I found these in my father's desk. They are yours. They are letters you wrote to me and did not send." Grady looked at the letters. He looked at them with the looking that is the surprise of seeing something private made visible, the exposure that a man does not want, the not wanting, the vulnerability, and the vulnerability was standing in the daylight holding unsent letters. "I wrote them. I wrote them in the first year. I wrote them because writing was the only way I could talk to you, and talking to you was the thing I needed, and needing was the condition, and the condition lasted a year, and after a year I stopped writing, because the stopping was the surviving, and surviving was what I chose. I should not have left the way I left. I should not have left without telling you. I should not have left without saying the thing that was true, which was that I was afraid of becoming my father, afraid of becoming the wife of a man in a small town who drinks and declines and becomes the thing that my mother became, which was a woman destroyed by a man's weakness, and the fear of becoming. That was the engine, and the engine drove me away. You were afraid of me? I was afraid of the life. I was afraid that the life would make me my mother. I was not afraid of you. I was never afraid of you. You were the only thing in this town that was not frightening, and the not frightening was the reason leaving was so hard, and the hard was the reason I did not look back, because looking back at the thing that was not frightening would have stopped me, and being stopped was the thing I could not allow. Grady set down the hammer he was holding. He set it down the way Odell had set down the hammer, the setting down, the clearing of hands for something more important than work, the more important being the words, and the words were the bridge, and the bridge was being built. You are not your mother, Tilly. You were never your mother. Your mother stayed with a man who destroyed her. You left. The leaving was not weakness. The leaving was the strength that your mother did not have, and the strength is the proof that you are not her. And the proof has been standing in Denver for 10 years, making dresses and building a life, and the life is the evidence. Tilly cried. She cried because the crying was the release, the unlocking of the thing she had locked away at 19, the locked thing being the knowledge that leaving Grady was the cost, and the cost was too high, and too high is the price that you pay when you discover that the thing you ran from was the thing you needed. I cannot undo the 10 years, Tilly said. The 10 years do not need undoing. The 10 years needed happening. The 10 years made you the woman who is standing here. And the woman who is standing here is the woman who came back. And the coming back is the thing I have been waiting for. And the waiting is over. Tilly looked at the house. She looked at the broken house where her father had drunk himself into the floor. The house that was the reason she left. The house that was now the reason she returned. The return, the circle the completion, that life sometimes offers when the running stops and the standing begins. "I will not sell the house," Tilly said. "I will fix it. I will fix it and I will stay. And the staying will be the thing I should have done 10 years ago. The thing I was too afraid to do. And the afraid is finished. And the finished is the beginning." Grady picked up the hammer. He picked it up because the hammer was the tool. And the tool was the building. And the building was the future. And the future was the house that Tilly and Grady would fix together, one board at a time, the way all broken things are fixed, with patience, with care, with the love that waited 10 years and that was still standing where she left it.